Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is Cambridge Physics 5054 course, and I'm your teacher, Maryam Rafiqu. Today we're gonna discuss chapter number 17, that is static electricity. And the topic we will discuss is methods of creating static charges. Now, before getting into the core concepts of this chapter or these topics, I would like to share some learning outcomes with you. For example, insulators and conductors, ways of creating static charges, what is conduction and what is induction, induced charge separation technique, and permanent charge by induction technique. Now we have to see the difference between the conductors and the insulators. Conductors conduct electrical current very easily because of their free electrons. And some common conductors are copper, aluminum, gold, and silver. While insulators oppose electrical current and make poor conductors. And some common insulators are glass, air, plastic, rubber, and wood. Now you can see here that the conductors have electrons that are free to move, for example in metals. And while in insulators, the electrons are not free to move, for example in plastics. Now we have to discuss that the charging of electrical insulators. When you charge an insulator by friction, the close contact of two electron clouds, each from a different medium, allows for electrons to be transferred between them. And the number of atoms coming in contact to each other by friction is proportional to the area of the two insulators rubbed together. And you can see here in this picture that while you are rubbing a glass with a silk cloth, then the glass rod will lose electrons and the silk will gain electrons that are negatively charged. Now we will see the charging of conductors. The charging of conductors can be done by the process of induction. And when charging a conductor by induction, a charged object is brought close to but does not touch the conductor, and in the end of the conductor has charge of the opposite sign as the charge on the object. Now creating a static charge. Now students, there are three ways to create a charge. The number one is friction, number two conduction, and number three is induction. And we can categorize them by the two subtopics, that is called by contact or without contact. So by contact, there are two methods, that includes two methods, that is friction and conduction. While in induction, that is without contact, can be seen here, temporary or permanent. Now friction was covered in previous lesson. We have to see conduction. Charging by conduction occurs when an already charged object touches another object with a dissimilar charge. And the electrons move between the two objects until the overall charge in each is equal. Now to better understand, we have to see an example here. Students, you can see or consider that there is a neutral object and a negatively charged rod. Now when we touch the negatively charged rod to the neutral object, you can see that it becomes negatively charged and the charges move from rod into the object. Now the neutral charge becomes negatively charged object. So if a charged object touches a neutral object, both objects will have that same resultant charge. And if two charged objects touch each other, they will both become the same charge or neutral. Now what will happen when these touch? You can see the two objects are here. The one is having amount of positive charge and the another is having amount of negative charge. So think about it, that what will happen when these touch. The electrons move between them so that each ends with the same charge. So you have to keep it in your mind, students, that we always start and end with the same number of positive and negative charges, and protons do not move. Now here is a think pair here, and there are some questions you have to think about it and answer me later. That how do charged objects become neutral again? Where can we get rid of unwanted electrons? And how can we get enough electrons to make a positive object neutral again? Now we have to see charging by induction. Charging by induction occurs when an already charged object is brought close to a neutral object, and the charge in the neutral object move towards a positive object or away from a negative object. Giving an object a temporary charge by induction is called induced charge separation. Now consider a neutral object here and a negatively charged rod is also here. You can see that while taking it close to the neutral object, the positive side now attracted towards the rod, that is negatively charged, and the object is neutral. Now a positively charged rod brought near to the neutral object. And here you can see that the negative side now attracted towards the positively charged rod. Giving an object a permanent charge by induction requires a ground. Now students, we have to consider again the neutral object, but now this time this is grounded. Now we have again a negatively charged rod, and we will brought near, not touch, but near to the object that was neutral. And now you can see here that because of grounding, the escape of charges through ground, and the neutral object now becomes positive object. And when ground is cut and negative rod removed, object remains positive. So what is the difference between conduction and induction? The major difference between conduction and induction is that conduction allows the charging of a neutral body with a charged body by forming a direct contact with it. And while induction is the process of charging a neutral body by a charged body without making any direct contact. Now this is the time for assignment, students. Here is a question I'm giving you. Please try to solve this. The diagram shows a metal sphere S mounted on an insulating stand. Describe a simple test you could perform and which does not alter any charge there may be on the sphere, and to determine whether or not the sphere is charged. Also, that given the sphere is charged, how could you test whether the charge is positive or negative without altering the charge on the sphere? Thank you so much and good luck.